Anybody? What's so special about it? Do you want to give it a try, Alec?
They don't really litter that much.
So they don't want it to be littered?
That's right. There are lots of rules in a national park because we want it to be protected, so you can't litter.
Why that area? What do you think? What would make sense? James?
Oh, because most of the parks, they want to keep clean for other guests that come.
Yes, we definitely want to keep this place clean and protected so that it's healthy, that everyone can enjoy it not just today, but tomorrow and next year and 100 years from now. So generations and generations of people can always come and this place will be protected. I'm going to give you a hint, though, what makes this place so special to give them the idea that they should protect it. There's something very rare here, something very uncommon.
Sarah?
A type of tree or animal.
That's
Good
a
try.
great, because we do have lots of trees and animals that we protect in Yellowstone.
Do you want to try, Nathan? Go ahead, buddy.
Because there's a lot of wildlife there.
Do you know what that is? That picture? There's a picture clue.
I know what that is.
Does anybody know? Sarah, do you want to try another guess?
Geysers.
That's right, geysers.
It's okay.
So you guys are right in that we do have lots of plants and animals that are protected here. But in 1872, the year that they created Yellowstone National Park, plants and animals were very common. They're all over the place. Now, of course, we have lots and lots of cities, and there's fewer protected habitats for wildlife. But geysers in 1872 were very rare, and they're still rare today. We have about 300 to 500 geysers in Yellowstone, and that's where hot water and steam shoots up out of the ground. And that's very weird. Does anybody there have a geyser in their backyard?
No,
No.
you don't know.
No, they're very, very uncommon. In fact, the few hundred that are in Yellowstone, those geysers are over half of all the world's geysers. So if you think about planet Earth and how big our planet is, it could be covered with geysers, but it's not. Over half of all the world's geysers are in this national park. So that's why they protected the landscape. But as you guys have pointed out, when you protect big swaths of land in Yellowstone, it ended up being 2.2 million acres of habitat. You also end up protecting what? Wildlife. That's right. Would you guys like to talk about some of the wildlife and plants that live in Yellowstone and how they live here?
Yes, but now, do you mind if Nellie asks a question quickly?
Yes, you guys can ask questions.
Go ahead, Nell.
Actually, it's no question. It is. My mom and my dad were in.
Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Okay, so her parents had visited, which is
Yeah.
interesting because they're from Germany.
Oh, and we actually do have a lot of visitors in Yellowstone from Germany. We get a lot of visitors from Japan, a lot of visitors from Germany, and of course lots and lots of Americans too.
Of course.
So that's really neat. So we have lots of animals in Yellowstone. We have little animals and big animals. Does anyone know the biggest animal that lives here?
Does anyone want to take a stab at it? Daniel?
Bears.
Bigger than bears, and we do have bears. We can talk about bears in just a minute. Does anybody know what this is?
Nathan, do you know? Go ahead.
A buffalo.
That's right, buffalo. And scientifically, they're called bison, but for a nickname, you can call them buffalo. And this is an animal that does very well here. Now, a long time ago, there were buffalo or bison all across the West, all across our country. But now that we have lots of cities and buildings and roads and factories and schools and stores, there's not as much open space for animals that live in big herds like buffalo and need to eat a lot of grass. So this is a great place for buffalo. Here in Yellowstone, we have a few thousand buffalo, and they are the biggest animal in Yellowstone. They do only eat plants, but oddly enough, they're the most dangerous animal in Yellowstone. So we do have some predators and animals that eat meat, but buffalo are the most dangerous, and it's simply because people get too close. And if you get too close to a buffalo, you might make him anxious or nervous, and if they run at you, they can poke you with their horns. So I want to point out something on this buffalo because it has a great adaptation to live in an area that gets a lot of snow. You guys get snow in Pennsylvania. You don't you?
Yeah.
In fact, just recently you probably had some snow.
Yeah,
Okay,
yesterday.
all right. So we get a lot of snow out here too. And where is the grass when it's wintertime and there's a lot of snow?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the buffalo have to eat grass and it's buried under the snow. So you'll notice that he has this big hump in his shoulders.
Yep.
He has to put his head down, and his head weighs a whole lot. He has this big, heavy skull. And this hump has bones and muscle in it. And I'm going to show you a bone that would be up in that hump. So this is a bison vertebrae. And this bottom part here, which is all bumpy, that's just like the vertebrae that's in our spine. Not this long part, but just this little round knobby part. If you bend over and feel up your spine, you can feel it's kind of bumpy. We have vertebrae too. Ours are only about this big and smaller even, like that. But his is very big. But he has a bone sticking off the back. And so if this were my bone, it would come off the back and I would have a hump up on the top of my back and my shoulders. So that hump in him has bones in it that muscles attached to so that he can put his head down in the snow and he can wave his head from side to side. And he snow plows the snow out of the way with his big head to be able to get the grass underneath. So that's an adaptation for that animal, to have a special type of spine to be able to carry that big head around and to move his head through the snow to move it out of the way. Now, someone mentioned bears, and we do have bears here in Yellowstone. We have 2 species of bears. Do you guys know which ones?
Does anybody want to give it a try? Catherine? She said black bear?
That's right. And you guys probably have black bears in Pennsylvania, huh?
I'm not sure if we have, listen, I'm not sure that we have any in York, but there are, okay, yes, but we do.
Yeah, so in your state, off in the woods more. So they don't like to live in cities too much. So if you live in a city, you might not see them around. But off in the woods, you might have some black bears somewhere in your state. They're very common, even on the East Coast. So we do have black bears, but we have another type of bear that's usually a little bit bigger than that.
Okay, does anybody want to give it a try? Okay, Brielle? Did you hear her?
No?
Real loud, Brielle.
A brown bear?
Yeah, and the brown bears here we call grizzly bears. See how this one has kind of some blonde tips to its fur? Sometimes they're kind of silver tipped, and they say the fur is grizzled, so they're called grizzly bears. And once again, the grizzly bear has an adaptation that the black bear doesn't have. It has a hump on its shoulders. And in this case, it's not to put its big head down in the snow like for a bison. The hump in its shoulders connects muscles in its powerful front arms. And it can use its front paws to dig. They like to dig a lot. And in fact, the grizzly bear claws are very different from a black bear claws. Grizzly bear's claws are kind of long and a little bit straight. They stick out from their fingertips kind of this far. And they're great for digging. Whereas a black bear's claws, I've got a black bear foot here. The black bear's claws are not quite as long and they're much more curved. The black bear climbs trees much more often than a grizzly bear, so it has great claws for climbing trees, whereas the grizzly bear claws are longer and straighter for digging. Why do you think grizzly bears dig?
Why do you think they dig? Nathan?
So they can get bugs under the ground?
Yeah, they dig for bugs, and in fact they'll rip open dead logs on the ground because insects usually infest old logs, like trees have fallen over and they're rotting. They'll dig apart old logs, they'll dig apart in the dirt to get at bugs in the dirt, and also to get at plants. They eat a lot of roots, bulbs, and tubers. Do you guys eat any roots, do you know of?
Do you eat any roots? Think. Who said yes? Catherine? What roots do you eat? Anyone else? Sarah?
Carrots.
Right, very good. I wanted you to think of some fruit vegetables. Does anybody eat onions?
Yeah.
They're down in the ground. What about potatoes? Does anybody they're like French fries?
Potatoes. Potatoes.
Yes.
So like cheeseburgers and root vegetables that grow in the ground, in Yellowstone we don't have farms, and so we don't have those types of things like carrots and potatoes, but lots of the plants in Yellowstone have small tubers in the ground, and we do have wild onions here. So the bears eat a lot of plants. They eat the plants above ground, and they eat some of the roots and tubers below ground. They eat mushrooms, they eat insects, they eat lots and lots of different things, and they eat meat. I want to show you an adaptation of the bear that allows it to eat meat. So this is a skull from a black bear, and you'll notice that there's some sharp teeth there. You see those sharp teeth? Yeah. So those big canine teeth in the front, those big 4 teeth in the front, are extra sharp so it can rip and shred meat. But in the back of its mouth, these molars back here are not nearly as sharp. They're kind of flat. They're bumpy, and they're a lot like your own molars. If you run your tongue across your molars in the back of your mouth, you can kind of feel it's kind of bumpy, but not real jagged and sharp, right? Yeah. So that's when we're chewing up our food. That's what the bear would use, is those back molars to grind up plant materials, where it can use these sharp teeth up front to rip apart meat, because they don't have a fork and a knife like we use to cut their meat. But I have another skull here of an animal that has a very similar skull, and it has some sharp teeth up front. See all those sharp teeth? But look at the back. Are the back teeth sharp too? Yeah. Yeah.
We have some.
Even the back teeth are jagged and sharp. So this animal is different than the bear in that it doesn't eat any plants. It's a true carnivore, a true meat eater. Can you think of an animal in Yellowstone that might have a skull similar in size or shape to a black bear, but only eats meat?
Katie?
I'm not sure if I heard you, but we don't have alligators in Yellowstone.
Anyone else?
This is another mammal with fur.
Really?
Not a crocodile, it's a mammal with fur.
Who hasn't had a chance that? Daniel?
Brown bear. I still know it.
Eli?
A wolf.
That's right, the gray wolf. And I just showed you a clip of the gray wolf. Not all of the gray wolves are actually gray, though. Some of them look more like this. So they can be black or white or gray. But the gray wolf is a true carnivore. So even its back teeth are sharp and jagged because they have to rip and tear apart and shred meat. And oddly enough, they don't have those flat teeth to grind up their food very small. So they end up swallowing their food in kind of large chunks. And they rely on a strong gastric system. Inside their belly, they have some acids that are stronger than our bellies to break down their food. And so they eat kind of sloppy, and they tear apart the meat in large chunks and swallow it. Whereas when we're at the dinner table, we have to chew up our food pretty good. And in fact, your mom or dad might tell you to slow down when you're eating and not to wolf down your food, to slow down and chew it well. That expression, to wolf down your food, is because wolves do that. They eat very, very quickly, and then they have to lay around while their stomach actually digests a lot of the food. So did you guys have some questions about some of the other animals in Yellowstone, or should I show you some more of the animals that live here?
Do you want to see some more, and then we'll open it up for questions? Okay. They want to see some more.
You want to see more?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quiz you guys and see if you can help me determine what some of these animals are. We have animals here that carry this on their head.
Anyone? What do you think, Caitlin? A ram?
That's right. And the ram means it's a male. The species of animal is called a bighorn sheep. Can you think of why they're called a bighorn sheep? Yeah. So this is the ram, the male, and the males are the ones that have the big horns. It's a full curl as they grow older. So these are rams, or males. And this is a ram. The females have a much smaller horn. goat horn. But the EWE, the female of the bighorn sheep, have much smaller horns. Why do you think that the males have the really big horns and are called rams, and the females don't have that?
Anybody want to give it a try? Alex?
Because like the female rams, I think
What do they do with them?
they use it to charge and get their meat or the
Oh.
So you think the males use it to get their meat and to protect?
I think that's.
What about this?
Oh, he thinks that's what the females do.
Oh.
Does anybody want to give it a try? Okay. Who's it? Go ahead, buddy.
To fight.
That's right. They ram into each other.
Oh, right.
The males
Into
fight over females.
Oh.
track.
Fighting for girlfriends, basically. So the males will fight with each other, and will use those big horns, they'll ram their heads into each other, and then eventually one of them will kind of back off, usually, and go away, realize he's not as strong or as powerful. And then the one that's left, that kind of won the fight, gets to have the girlfriends. So they ram each other. It's silly, I know. It's very, very silly.
Nathan says he doesn't want to be the winner.
Here, also, they can sometimes, instead of fighting, they just kind of look at each other and think, oh, he looks a lot bigger than I do. And maybe they just can size each other up and not always have to fight. But they do fight with each other during their mating season, and they fight over females. We have some other animals that do that. Anybody know who wears this on their head? This is kind of a small one.
Rio?
That's right, moose. And we don't have a lot of moose in Yellowstone, but we do have some. Who wears that big antler on its head? Is it the male or the female?
If you think it's the male, raise your hand.
I see lots of hands raised. Does anybody think the female wears the big antler? So I'll show you a female, and you tell me if she has antlers.
No.
So it's kind of like with the bighorn sheep, even though the bighorn sheep females have a little horn, in moose, the females don't have any antlers at all. Just the males do. And it's the same thing. They fight with each other to fight over girlfriends. What animal that has one that looks like this?
What do you think? Tony? Say it louder.
It's bigger than a deer. We have white-tailed deer, and we have black-tailed deer, or mule deer, in Yellowstone. But this animal is bigger than that.
Anybody know what's
It
been?
begins with an E. Yes, elk. It has a very short name, but a very big antler. And do you think both the males and the females have those antlers, or just the males or just the females?
If you think just the males, raise your hand. Okay. If you think just the females, raise your hand. We have one. You think they both?